Welcome back to Atlanta and Company, everyone. I'm Christine Pilara. Great to be with you this morning. The divorce, bankruptcy, and injury attorneys at Haidt, Eichelser, and Kuhn are champions for their clients. In partnership with Atlanta and Company, they want to help answer your burning questions. Right now, text HELAW to 25543. That's HELAW to 25543 for questions or to speak to an attorney. Well, this morning, Elizabeth Kuhn is here to answer some of our viewers' questions. Welcome back.
Thank you, Christine. It's great to be here again today.
Thank you so much for doing this. We got a great response. And our questions range from divorce to child custody and so much more. We're going to start with a Facebook question we got from a woman named Kat. She writes, my daughter is 10 years old. Her biological father has been out of the picture completely for 9 years. He's listed on the birth certificate, which creates an issue with obtaining a passport for a family cruise. He's living under the radar, and we are unable to locate him for a signature. How can we obtain a passport for her? We always end up with a dead end.
Kat, that actually is an excellent question. A lot of people these days don't realize that post 9/11, it's become a lot more complicated traveling out of the country with children, even when you're married. So what really needs to happen, I'm sorry that you reached a dead end, but really what needs to happen is if you live within the state of Georgia, you need to basically file a petition in the courts to declare Kat as the sole legal and sole physical custodian of the child, and the court can actually authorize issuance of a passport.
Wonderful.
Believe it or not, it can be a fairly quick process depending on the county that Kat is located in, and it could take anywhere from about 60 to 90 days. Other counties might take a little longer. So Kat, if you're planning on traveling out of the country for Christmas, you might be a little cutting it close, but give us a call and we'll go ahead and get the process started. You don't need to suffer with the dead end.
Right. Very good. Good advice. Our second question comes from Amy, and she writes, my legal question comes from something I actually read in the newspaper. If something were to happen to me and my husband, our kids would end up in the hands of social services despite their grandparents being just 10 miles away. The attorney in the article said to legally in writing name short-term guardians. So how do we do this without spending a ton of money? Just walking into an attorney's office is expensive. So what is the cheapest way, or is there a cheap way? My children are 1 and 2 years old, so it would be frightening to end up in the care of strangers if we were in an accident. Another good question.
That is often, as parents, we are all terrified of a simultaneous death and our children being left to the state. This is not necessarily a simple answer. There are a multitude of ways that somebody can go about it. Specifically, going through the probate court, they have guardianship forms. The probate court clerks are typically very helpful. They'll hand you the forms. You can go ahead and try and do it yourself, but as last time segment, I explained that sometimes that's a little tricky, and it's a good idea to hire an attorney to perhaps look over the paperwork. Also, people should be cautious of having wills, health care, and financial power of attorneys to provide for their children in the event of an unlikely simultaneous death. They also really need to be aware, these are your kids, and yes, grandparents live 10 miles away, but what if something in 5 years happens to the grandparents?
Right.
And they're not able to take care of the kids. So it's a constant worry. As parents, we all have children, and that's something that you need to really be cautious of. Again, depending on your particular situation, I highly advise speaking to an attorney. Last week's segment, we mentioned that there are lots of attorneys in Metro Atlanta that do a consultation at no charge. Really investigate it and see if you do need that step for an attorney, or perhaps it is something as simple as going to probate court.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to be left in that situation or leave your children in that situation.
Right. In response to her social service questions, what happens is it's called DFACS, the Department of Family and Children's Services in Georgia. What would happen in the unlikely event of a simultaneous death and you don't leave a will, you don't leave guardianship paperwork, they can't find the relatives quickly. And they're required to have a 72-hour emergency hearing in the juvenile court system, and your children will be in the care of a foster parent, and that's terrifying.
Right. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Okay, another great question. Our third question comes via email from Rachel. She writes, I've been divorced for 5 years. How long should I keep my divorce papers? Is it like a tax return and you can dispose of it after just a few years? What's your answer there?
Sure, Rachel, great question. You're going to get the lawyer answer on that, and the answer is it depends. Is the divorce decree where you were married and y'all separated, you divided everything, and nobody has any other obligations in the decree? The courthouse keeps copies of it. You can just keep it somewhere on hand. But if you still have unfinished obligations in the decree, you need to keep it until all the obligations have been met.
Right.
It's a contract.
Right. Might as well. Doesn't hurt. Just store it somewhere so doesn't take up a lot of room, but just keep it.
Exactly.
Okay. And let's talk about marriage because, oh my gosh, I had to stop and watch that old movie, War of the Roses. Remember that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And just, you can't help but watch. It was, if you've never seen it, it's sort of a black comedy, but it's really sad about what happens, when divorce turns ugly sometimes. And as a divorce attorney, I know you hear all sorts of stories. You see so much. Why is it that it's almost like quite often you turn into a therapist during these divorce proceedings? And what do you do about that?
It happens. First of all, as a divorce family law attorney, you have to set up the boundaries. I often tell clients, listen, if you're here for some mental health therapy, maybe just quick blow off steam, I can help you with that. But in the grand scheme of things, we aren't qualified to handle that. So often we refer them out to a specialist, and unfortunately sometimes clients, they're embarrassed, they're humiliated, and there's no shame in going to a third party to get some help. And we often do that. If you try to use your attorney as your mental health therapist, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Right.
And I'm not qualified.
Exactly. Think that through. Thank you so much. You've been fabulous, as always. We really appreciate all of your great advice and look forward to having you back again.
Thanks so much.
And great questions from our viewers. We appreciate that. If you still have a question, if you're somebody new to the show right now and you want to speak to one of the attorneys at Haidt, Eichelser & Kuhn, please text HE-LAW, that's HELAW, to 2543 at 25543, and someone from their office will get back to you. And for more information on Haidt, Eichelser & Kuhn, log on to their website, he-law.com, or give them a call, 770-517-0045.